Class of 96. For many Lost Media YouTubers, it's almost a rite of passage that something like this would happen. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Class of 96 was a drama series that aired on Fox in 1993. The show was about students at a fictional Ivy League university who would deal with relatable challenges and dealt with various issues and were from various different backgrounds. The show was planned to follow the characters until graduation, but ultimately this never happened because the ratings were not high enough to keep the show going, as the time slot was at the same time as more established popular shows such as Full House. The show became obscure as a result of that. The literal day after I uploaded episode 27, where I talked about this show originally, 8 episodes became found, meaning that now only the last 4 episodes are lost. Who knows, maybe through some kind of luck the rest of the show will be found tomorrow, instantly outdating this video. The Real Match Game Story, Behind the Blank. This documentary was completely lost for some time, as there was a YouTube upload in the mid-2010s which was the only copy of it available. It was later deleted, most likely for copyright reasons. The documentary goes through the history of the show, complete with interviews with people involved. That is, if you can see them. The documentary was re-uploaded to YouTube and Internet Archive in terrible quality. Technically, it is found, but not in any way you'd actually want to watch. The max quality is 240p, which is abysmal. For reference, the Porgy and Bess movie generally isn't considered lost by the Lost Media community because it's available in 480p. The search for a higher quality version of this documentary will be very tough, as it only aired on the Game Show Network a few times in the mid-2000s, and there doesn't seem to be much demand considering the fact that not many people know about its existence. Dream Chasers. Dream Chasers was an Epcot attraction that was around in the early 2000s. It was essentially a show where 2 animated characters showed the viewer various environments and showcased how GM developed their vehicles, as well as future GM production. The show was unpopular as it seemed to only exist to promote GM and for no other reason. Because of this, the idea was shelved in 2004 and replaced with a different show with the same name, until ultimately being shelved entirely after that. There have been no recordings of the event that have surfaced online, and it's very unlikely that Disney would bring this attraction back, meaning that it's got an almost certain chance of remaining lost.
He's a phantom. A kid whose life has changed, molecules rearranged, ghosts are so deranged. He's gonna get you all these Danny Phantom spirits don't stand a chance. Senses all enhanced, power so advanced.
Danny Phantom Original Intro. The mid-2000s Nickelodeon series Danny Phantom was not originally intended to have the classic hip-hop theme we all know and love, but instead the one you just heard. You can find animatics of the original intro sequence with the audio of the original theme song, as both have been readily available for a while. And I do think they made the right decision. Most rapping theme songs are terrible, but in this case I think it was easily the better choice. The footage from the original intro, however, has been difficult to find. There have been bits and pieces of footage here and there in promos, and one singular screenshot is available, but outside of those materials there isn't anything else. Also, fun fact, the YouTube video of the animatic has the word cool in all caps in the URL. That probably doesn't matter, but I don't care, I thought I would share it.
They had a certain something.
Jay had the talent to be somebody.
Practice, never reenact this. The simple fact is I'm real good at this.
They chased one goal relentlessly.
He always knew what he wanted to do, and he always knew that he could do it.
Driven. Here we have another lost VH1 music documentary series, in VH1's Driven. The concept behind this show was relatively simple. Each episode would focus on a famous person, either a TV personality or a musician, and detail their road to stardom, hence the name Driven. In the vein of Behind the Music, each episode focused on a different artist or group, and also in the vein of Behind the Music, its preservation was not handled very well. Of the 62 total episodes, 26 are found in full, with various bits and pieces of other episodes being available. with 18 episodes being completely lost. Because it's unlikely for episodes to be released officially, over 2 decades later, this search will most likely be completed in the form of VHS findings. That is, if it ever happens. Restaurant City. Restaurant City was a Facebook game that launched in 2009, with the premise of managing a restaurant if you couldn't guess by the title. This management was down to the very minute details as well. You could decorate your restaurant and upgrade it to include things such as functioning toilets and even hiring employees. As well as this, there was an interactive element, being a Facebook game and all, as you could pick up trash off the floor of your friend's restaurant. Yeah, as you can see, this was kind of a weird game, and it's now lost, as it just sort of quietly went away in 2012. There was a Russian version released in 2016 which had some changes made, and is believed to be an older version of the game before its international release. As of now, only a few gameplay videos exist, as well as an upload of the game's soundtrack. The Grubs. This show was based on the British sitcom The Grimleys, and was planned to release in 2002. It's about a blue-collar Pennsylvania family in the 70s. Gee, an early 2000s sitcom that takes place in the northern US in the 70s. How original. I joke, but honestly, aside from the surface level, this show really has nothing in common with that 70s show. The show had some problems during production, as it was originally planned to have a 13-episode season, which was later changed to 8 to cut costs. And 2 days before it was set to release on Fox, it was cut from the schedule as the critical reception bombed. As a result, the show never officially aired, and the pilot has been the only episode of this show to be recovered. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Death of Sirius Black Unmuted Scene. In this film in the Harry Potter series, there's an unconfirmed lost edit made that's theorized to exist by fans. Director David Yates said in an interview that the death of Sirius Black was slowed down on purpose in order to get more emotion out of it. But the scene is also silent, meaning that the edit could have been added to the scene for the same effect. If that's the case, and the muting of the scene wasn't due to a microphone issue, that means that the original audio of the scene could be out there somewhere. Fans have speculated that due to a death in Daniel Radcliffe's family before the taping of that scene, that the scream contained within was too painful sounding to include in the film. There's very little evidence that the audio exists, but if it does, it's unlikely to get any kind of release. Bryant and May Matches. In 1896, Burt Akers made a short film called Bryant and May Matches, which was intended to sell matches made by the titular company. There's no consensus on what the contents of the short were, but what's generally accepted is that this short film was the first commercial ever produced. According to film historian Peter Domonkiewicz, this commercial was not preserved particularly well, as Burt Akers simply didn't care about preservation as much as the other, more well-known filmmakers of the time. It's believed that something like a commercial was seen as a lot more disposable than a typical short film, and thus this piece of history is now lost. King Facebook Games. King is a Maltese game publisher most well known for the Candy Crush series. There are very many games they made in the 2010s decade for the Facebook platform that are now lost, as gaming through Facebook and honestly, Facebook itself is pretty much dying. After support for Flash pretty much ended in 2020, these games were converted to HTML5, meaning the Flash versions became lost. Quite a lot of footage of these games exist, as well as some concept materials for games that never saw a release, but there is no completely found Facebook game today, and some of them aren't even confirmed to exist. Some games like the Flash version of Candy Crush do have the Chinese version of the game available, but in the case of that specific one, it was never archived. Flashpoints is not an exhaustive database after all. For some of these Flash games, the only way you can relive them is by watching videos of them on YouTube.